So today we're taking a look at Nova by Tokyo Dawn, which is a free dynamic EQ. This is not a sponsored video. I just absolutely love this plugin and I want to show you all about it, all its features, how you can use it, and how it can help you. So let's get right into it. So Nova is a dynamic EQ, which basically means it's a combination between an EQ and a compressor. So any of the EQ bands can be turned into a compressor, or it can also operate as a straight wideband compressor. It can also function as a standard static EQ. And any of these four bands that the free version comes with, when the threshold is activated, the band basically becomes a compressor. And the blue line is the threshold, and the yellow line shows you gain reduction. And at any point, you can double-click on any knob and reset it to 0. And if you deactivate all the nodes, and then here it functions as a straight wideband compressor. So you can have it function as a regular static EQ, as a regular compressor, or as a dynamic EQ. It's very versatile. And Nova comes with this EQ gain option over here, which is very helpful because it will automatically adjust the gain for any cut or boost that you do. And this helps your ears not get fooled by the output signal when you do cuts or boosts. And at any time, you can scroll with the mouse to change the bandwidth of the EQ. And right now, this is set on bell curve, which you can see down here. And at any time, you can right-click to adjust it to a high shelf or low shelf, or back to a bell curve. And every band comes with its own attack and release, and you can set the ratio independently for each band. And the y-axis graph on the left, you can adjust the overall gain this way as well, or you can do it with the gain knob down here. And any gain reduction also shows up on the gain knob down here. If I engage this threshold, this yellow indicator next to the gain knob is also showing your gain reduction. So before we get too deep into this, I'm going to show you up here in the top right, the question mark. If you highlight it, this is a really awesome help function, and anything that you hover over, it will tell you a lot of information about how to use the plugin. And you can adjust this from stereo to mono or dual mono, and a little later we'll talk about sum and difference in here. And there's also an A and B setting. So you can have an A and B comparison, so you can do two different EQ profiles and compare them back and forth. And the algorithm on Nova has a built-in soft knee, so it's very transparent and very gentle. And the algorithm also does not use crossovers. So the lack of crossovers allows you to do some really visually dramatic cuts and boosts, and it still comes out very gentle and transparent. And if at any time you drag one of your nodes above the other or below, so it's out of order, you can click order by frequency, and it will realign them in order of 1 to 4. So that's very useful. Also, at any time, you can simply bypass the plugin and compare it to the dry signal. And every node, or all of them, can be set with the dry mix to engage parallel compression or parallel EQ. So it's also a fully parallel compressor and equalizer. And on the right, the range setting, it defaults to -48 dB, but if you click on it, it'll go all the way down to -96 if you need to see your noise floor. That's also very helpful. So in Nova, the yellow gain line is not the same as makeup gain. Effectively, your output gain would be your makeup gain. Also, at any time, you can drag the mouse and highlight multiple nodes and adjust them simultaneously. And Nova also comes with a high pass and a low pass, which the slopes can be set all the way down to a very steep 72 dB, which of course if you're using, you're going to want to watch out for phase issues, but it will do it if you want it. And so will the low pass, will do the same thing. And you can adjust it from a 6 dB slope, which is very gentle, to a 12, to a 24, and all the way down to a 72. So I'm sure by now you're starting to see that Nova is an incredibly intuitive and well-designed tool that just lends itself towards creativity. Having something like Nova to be able to try things that you might not otherwise try with static EQs and compressors, it's so creative and intuitive, it's just downright fun to play around with. So the amount of functionality built into this plugin is absolutely astounding. It's really hard to believe that it's free. And any of these bands can be soloed out. You can solo any single band you want, and you can also hold Shift and Control to engage the band solo. And also, at any point, if you want to hear your gain reduction, the GR delta or gain reduction delta will just play you what is actually being compressed, which is super, super helpful. Now, a lot of people ask about whether or not the free version of Nova is capable of processing mid-side EQ, and the answer is absolutely. So what you need to do in order to process mid-side in Nova is simply use two separate instances of Nova in your effects chain. So in the first instance, what you do is go up and under the mono stereo option drop-down menu, you would select difference. Now difference means side channel. So now if I have this set on my master bus, for example, and I want a high pass here just in the side channel to roll all of the side channel information out of the low end, there we go. So this instance of Nova is only processing the side, and now I've taken all of the side channel information out of the low end with this high pass. And we could also turn up just maybe a high shelf here to just process the sides. So that's how you do it with Nova. And then what you do is after that in the effects chain, you put on another instance of Nova and you go up here and you change it to sum. And sum is just processing the mids. So now here in the mids, for example, let's say I turn on a low shelf to give the kick and the bass a little bit of a boost, and I have a dynamic low shelf going on here, adding a little bit of compression and glue to it. Now that is only processing the mids. So yes, you just need to use two instances of Nova and it works beautifully. And now that we've showed you all the main features of Nova, let's dive into some specific tracks and show you some examples of what it can do. So let's take a look at some of the sidechain options here. In this example, I have the bass sidechain to the kick drum, and it's dialed into the kick's fundamental. The bass will dip out where the kick is ringing out and leave that clarity for the kick drum in the mix. And this is set as static, but you could also set this sidechain here to just be dynamic. So instead of actually dipping out the decibels, you could actually be compressing that region or any combination of both. Now let's take a look at these backup vocals. You can also use Nova as a de-esser essentially. So right up around 9K, we're compressing these ladies who were recorded with a lot of sibilants. And here we're honing in just on the sibilants that we're reducing. Yeah, so you can hear how much is to be taken out. And we've added a little high shelf in above the sibilants and then a little boost below it. Nova makes a fantastic de-esser. And let's tame some of those harsh frequencies coming out of that lead guitar here. So instead of using a static EQ, we're just compressing that region. And when those harsh frequencies jump out, they trigger the threshold and we get some gain reduction to make this sound much more pleasant. And here we're going to use Nova to give a boost to the saxophone because it's a little hollowed out in the mids. And we're also going to compress it. So when you see that gold line dancing down, that means the loudest notes are being compressed. So we're adding some nice smooth transparency so those low notes are more consistent when it rings out. And that independent attack and release helps it dip out and recover just how we want it. All right, let's take a look at one more nice feature of Nova here. If you hold Alt and hit threshold with the node selected, it goes into sticky mode. And now the wideband compressor is not going to affect that node. That node is effectively going to be stuck. So let's say in this example on the master bus, I'm adding some gentle compression to the entire song. But this way, the lows from everything from about 100 hertz down are not being affected. So it doesn't mess with any of my punch on the low end. And I could go ahead and engage the same thing up here on the high end. I can make this high end shelf sticky. Now we're only getting a nice mid-range glue here with the compressor, and the high and lows are not affected. So the possibilities are really endless here. If I had to pick 3 plugins to mix an entire song, this would definitely be one of them. So I hope you learned a lot from that. I'm gonna leave the link to download TDR Nova in the description of this video, and I recommend you check it out and get to know this plugin because it's absolutely amazing. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next one.